Hi, it's Ronnie, and welcome to Christy's Beautiful Life 30 Days of Sketches, Round 18, where we all use a sketch as our inspiration to create our layout. And today's sketch is by Cynetta Seekins. And as you can see, it's a lovely two-page layout. However, I'm only going to use the left-hand side. And I'm scrapping this photo of my granddaughter, Hope. And the paper that I'm using back there, well, I guess I'll tell you the dyes first. Tim Holtz. I do use some of them, and this one's Tim Holtz too. And if you need to know the name, let me know down there because I do have them on the packaging. And that sunflower one is not Tim Holtz, though, but I stored it in there. And then whimsical dies from Diamond Press, and then these are the Echo Park ones. And I took my Creative Memories circle cutter and just drew a circle, well, half circle there, so that I could get close to it looking like a half circle instead of me just guessing. The layout, the sketch has portrait style photo, and I have landscape, so that'll make a little bit of a difference. And the sunflowers were already assembled from when I made a layout back in the fall. But the other stuff I assembled, it took me a long time, and I did not assemble all of them. I cut a bunch out, and so I have more for another day. But I thought some of them were so tiny that you probably couldn't see what I was doing with my hands anyway, being in the way. So I just went ahead and assembled them while I watched a couple of movies. I mean, I watched two on TV. And then it got to the point I thought, man, I'm getting kind of tired of making these. And so I quit. So that's why I still have more flower parts to make more with. I Some of these flowers was a lot smaller, which I like because I like bigger and smaller. And the sunflowers are big. So I went ahead and pulled out that second, well, I think you've seen it first, die set with the taller flowers. I think they're called wildflowers. And I was going to put them over to the left of my photo, but then I realized it hit me. I mean, I thought, oh my goodness, I remember on her sketch that she had some coming up in the center of the double page layout. So I am putting them here instead, but I am going to make a little tiny cluster over there. I really don't think the flowers would have fit here once I actually started on the layout and looked at it. So it's a good thing I remembered that they were in the center anyway. The wreath, that is, because, I'm only doing the left hand side of the layout. And my title's going to be in a little bit different spot. It shows it coming down. I did have two, not three, um, words to do, but I'm going to put mine right above the photo instead of going up higher. And of course, y'all notice my photo's straight. I like to angle my photos a lot, but it depends on what I'm using with it if I do. And that one just looked like it needed to go on there straight. I Oh, and I backed it in the same cardstock that I used for the flowers. She has a maroon shirt on because that's the school's colors, and that is a school shirt. And there is like one little flower that has maroon colors, and there's plenty there in that little patch of flowers. So I made sure I had some maroon for the layout, and I matted the photo with the yellow and the maroon. And let's see where I am at this. Oh, I'm going so slow at it. I did slow it down just a little bit because I knew there was a lot of flowers going to get put on here. And I'm cutting that one little spray apart. That is a Tim Holtz spray, and it came with those two tall flowers. And I'm just cutting it apart to put on there. And I did use four different color leaves, well, green paper, not leaves. But they came out as leaves when I got done. But I did use 4 different colors. A couple look a whole lot alike on the screen, but they are different in real life. In real life, you can tell. But they're close. But I was having a hard time finding colors that I thought would all go together, go with the greenery in the photo, and work. So, yeah, those two were kind of on the close side together. But I started to tell you about the paper. I pulled it out for another layout. It's that winter garden one that's got all the grays and blues and stuff, and black, and weathered garden. I think that's what it was. Simple Stories. And then it hit me. I could get one of the is an Echo Park one with plaid. So I got that and used it instead and had not put this up. But it's the perfect colors for the photo. I know it looks a little bit more yellow, and I've really been thinking, why is that? It looks like it's the skyline. Why is that yellow? But I hadn't figured it out yet. If y'all figure it out, let me know. I was not there. I do not know. I mean, it may not be a skyline. It might be a really big building painted yellow. But I thought, well, I'm going to make everything kind of go with it. So I have different shades of yellow. Of course, once I inked the one that looks a lot like it, you couldn't tell it was that color anyway. It's that smallest flower. I think the smallest, really close to the smallest. The one with the ruffled edges. And my favorite one is that little one with the bud coming up and the maroon on it. I think that one's really cute. And oh, now I'm just kind of filling in. I didn't want it to be, you know, uniform. And that isn't my favorite thing. So I'm just filling in and having stragglers stick out here and there on my wreath. And yeah, those little flowers work perfectly for that. And since I hadn't die cut in a while and assembled flowers, uh, I did enjoy it until I just plain got tired of it and was ready to make the layout. But even though I used fall colors, I think it turned out pretty colorful anyway. At least on my screen here, it looks pretty colorful. And there was in that Tim Holtz die set, I mean, all the stuff is so tiny. I did not use all of it. Like that smaller leafy branch, it had like a half a leaf to glue on there to give it, I guess, more texture. I just inked. And then on that maroon flower, it had individual petals that you could put on there on top of the others. I just inked it too. Oh my goodness. I love the die set, but it can get very complicated doing it. So I just made them kind of go with each other this way instead of having some of them with a whole lot more detail. And some of the centers, I didn't use the whole thing either. Um, Now, here's my title, and it's Autumn Fun. And the top one is that Echo Park letterbox, and then the bottom one is the diamond press one. And it's pretty old. I've had it. It's probably one of the first ones I ever bought when I started buying diamond press ones off of HSN. But yeah, instead of 3 words, I only have the 2. But I do have an exclamation point. Does that count for anything? Here's my little cluster down there. I accidentally cut 2 of that green stem. It goes on the dandelion. But it's only because I misplaced one and I thought, did I not cut out 2? Because I was cutting 2 at a time. And I gave up and cut another one. Well, then I found it. So I thought, well, maybe I can use it for something. I'll throw it in there. And it works perfectly with this little flower. And I am just going to add some more greenery and a couple more flowers. So I'll have 3 down in that cluster. And then I'll sort of be done with my layout. I'll think I'm done. And then when I'm taking the pictures, I took the big one and a couple more. And then I went to take that little cluster and I thought, oh, it needs something else. So you will see in the photos at the end that I did add just a little bit more there. And all the flowers on here do have foam tape behind the flower heads just to give it a little more dimension. Oh, and I forgot to show it at the beginning, but see that Stampin' Up! Punch in the upper right? I did use it with a few other flowers. But I think this is the last little bit that I'm going to add here. So I want to mention while I am doing this that down there below, you will see a link to the playlist and you can check out and see what everybody else has created with the sketch from today. Plus, Cynetta has an Instagram and it's at Scrappy_Faith. So you can check that out too and probably see what she created with the sketch. Well, I kept looking at this spot and glancing over that way and decided it needed just a wee bit more greenery. You know, I like green a lot, love green. Uh, but yeah, I'm just adding a little. Well, I'm adding what's left in that tray. There's like 2 flowers left, and that is it. So I done a really good job of guessing when, guessing when to stop making the flowers to go on my layout, or actually in reality got tired of making them for a while. But that's it. That's my layout, and I did have a lot of fun making it. And here is where I added to that bottom cluster. Uh, there's some grass, and then it says, "There is no one just like you." Well, there's the close up. I didn't have to read that, it's right there. But yeah, I added a bit of grass and then thought, well, that's not enough. So I added the phrase sticker, and that does come, I think it's a Simple Stories collection called Reset Girl or something like that. I did not have the collection, but I got the sticker book in, well, I think it was just individual pages back then in a warehouse box. And there's my tall cluster of flowers, bouquet of flowers. Well, some might call that one a weed. I like it. And here's the last bunch of flowers on here. But thank you all so very, very much for joining me today while I created my layout. I really appreciate that. And I hope you have a happy, scrappy day. Bye.